Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is the last afternoon session of Hearing 4, Day 3. We now welcome let's get Alec Jack.
Yep.
You're Mr. Jack?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You've got a presentation to do for us?
Yes.
We've received some materials here that you've nicely bound for us.
What's that, sorry?
They're nicely bound.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you much for putting in that effort. So we'll hand it over to you, and it's up to you how you want to present your evidence.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll be as quick as I can because I know you guys have had a long day.
No, you're taking time.
Okay. Right. Anyway, this is the area that we're talking about. It's with regard to outstanding natural feature 91, ONF 91. I think that's what you would call it.
No, you can't see.
I can see the sun.
Okay. It might be just as easy. We just sort of look at how oriented everybody is.
I'll look at that.
Pakaraka is up to the north here. This is the end of Loverock Road. This is Lake Ōwhariiti, and this is locally known as Jack's Lake or Jack's Lagoon. The outstanding natural feature is basically centred around Poirua, the mountain Poirua, and it follows around, and at the moment it includes Jack's Lake, and it also includes quite a bit of the waterfront around Ōwhariiti. So I'll just deal with Jack's Lake first. We've been through this process with NRC as well, so I'll go through that first and then I'll just talk about Lake Ōwhariiti. So basically, if you look at these two loose leaf pictures in your file here, one is an aerial photo before we built Jack's Lake in 1975. I'll basically talk about why we built it first of all. It was built by my father in January 1975 with a 50% subsidy from the Acclimatisation Society, which is now Fish and Game NZ. Dad's a really keen duck shooter, and he would entertain family and friends at duck shooting, but only if there was water in that particular flood zone. So it's a very small catchment area, and there would only ever be water there in May if we had heavy rain. So this was just basically the water would go out through a soak hole here, and there'd be a little bit of water here, and they'd shoot around it. The catchment of the area is just pretty much this area here. So it's a very small catchment, and there's a soak hole in the lava flow here. So what he did was he got a grant from the Acclimatisation Society to build a dam across here and another one across here. It's all well underwater now. But I've got a photo of it. Luckily, in 1977, there was a flyover and you can see the causeway in there, which was really lucky for purposes like this. So, but anyway, so the idea was to separate the clay country from the soak hole and the very porous lava flow area. So it wasn't just the soak hole. He knew that that there was other places along this lava frontage that could soak water away as well. So he built a causeway right down here and another one here. So I'll just get to my notes now. So yeah, if you look on the this printed out one, I don't know if you can show that. The other one, keep that in your mind. The next one is a sort of older version. That's the one there. So you can see there's no water there in that area. So it's just an area of flats that would flood with heavy rain. I'll just whip through the evidence here. I mean, that's obviously a key part of the evidence, but if we just work through our booklet now, you'll see, what have we got first of all? So we've got the old 1940 something or other inch to mile map. So that's that one there. And you'll see Lake Ōwhariiti very clear, but nothing there in the area of Jack's Lake. And to the south there, you can see swamp areas marked and things, but there's not even a swamp or anything marked there. And then if we go to the next page, this is from the Maps Past website where you can get a history of the areas. This is a 1969 updated version, and you can sort of see the bush lines and all that sort of stuff. Much more detailed now, but still no lagoon there. And that would have been a similar time probably to that aerial photo being taken. And then if we go through, this one was a bit hopeless, I'm afraid, sorry. I found it on the internet in one of the council's documents, so that's a council document there. And that's probably a similar era aerial photo, but it really clipped off a lot of the view of where the lagoon now sits, the lake now sits. So that's why I went ahead and printed out this larger version that you can see there now. So, and then if we go through the next page, this is a copy of my father. Luckily, Dad was a very keen diary keeper. So January 1975, Thursday the 23rd, Kerry Hogan, who must have been from the Acclimatisation Society, inspected the lagoon for subsidy. Then the next day, Friday 24th, he marked out where the lagoon causeway was going to go. Then on the Saturday, Karen Kite, the digger operator, started operating the digger and building the causeway. And that continues Sunday 20, he's clearly not a Christian man, working on the Sabbath. And then on Monday, he's still working. Karen, full day on lagoon, finished side causeway, dug hole around soak hole. For the benefit of hindsight, that might have been a mistake. Probably best not to dig around the soak hole. So, and that's probably what's contributed to the problem we now have. I wouldn't want to say that in front of my dad, because he did his best to not create what we've created, which is a huge, we had massive flooding. But anyway, Tuesday the 28th, I basically highlighted all the areas where he was working on the causeway. Wednesday the 29th, Karen finished main causeway, cab causeway, which is, when we get to the picture showing the causeways, you'll see what the cab causeway is. So basically all the entries, and then there, Friday 31st, Kerry Hogan looked at the scheme, Karen finished, there's 3 islands that they built as well. The idea being that when the water level comes up to the height of the causeway, there'd be 3 islands in the area that he could have willows and other trees for bird cover and bird feed and that sort of thing on. So if we just turn over, then the last one, Monday the 3rd, Karen Kite finished all the wood. So that's his 1975 diary. So then this is if you're looking at this one, hopefully yours is better orientated than mine. That's a 1977 aerial photograph, and you can see the causeway. So that one going across there is what he referred to as the main causeway, and this is the cab causeway going across here. So that picture there is pretty much what he was hoping to achieve. So the idea was he had a causeway, he had culverts going through to the soak hole, but would have been very soon after that. I can remember the day that we got the digger back to try and free up the soak hole. And the digger went out in the water, the digger was in water about this deep, and unfortunately we were digging blind. And I remember we were all watching, hoping, expecting an almighty whirlpool to suddenly open up into the water to start flowing away again. But I think once again we dug our hole a little deeper and blocked up that soak hole even more. So that now you have this situation here, and it's the same as that original picture that Alicia Kate had up was a Google Earth image of what it's like today. So we now have a much bigger lake, lagoon than we ever hoped to have.
So if you don't mind me interrupting, but how deep is it today?
I think it's about 6 meters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
When I was a kid, it was knee height. You could run around catching ducklings in it and stuff. So it was a very flat area. It was tremendous fun for kids. Yeah. But now it's just grown incredibly. Like the causeways are well underwater. The tops of the mai-mais are all well underwater. If you really know what you're looking for when you look at this, when you contrast these 2 photos, you can even see how much bush, big tall native bush has actually died going underwater. There's still a couple of stumps there right out in the water, and certainly the tea tree on the other side, on the eastern side, if you paddle over it, you can look down to it and you can see the top of the tea tree you know, still in the water because it just stands here in the water. And when in a severe drought, when water level reduces a bit, you can see the tops of the tea tree sticking out. So the other thing I just wanted to draw your attention to was the paper road. Surveyors back in the day didn't survey roads through the bottom of lakes. So, you know, that surveying occurred a long, long time ago before the lake was instated. What else have I got next? I just keep scrolling over. Oh, yeah, and there's no eels in the lake. And a lot of people look at the lake and think, oh, you know, it's natural, it'll be full of eels. And there's no eels in there. I'm not a scientist, but I had a crack. I would imagine the reason that there never ever were eels, you know, obviously there would, normally in a little drain you'll find an eel, but there's never been eels there. And I would say it's because that so-called, the distance from that so-called to the next piece of open water is a very long way. Whereas on Lake Whakaiti, it's a different situation where the water's soaked out. It's only a very short distance to where the spring wells up in great volume. So it was very easy for elders to get into Lake Whakaiti, but they have never been able to get into what we've created here because there is no overland path or not even a swamp, you know, to tempt them. So it's just paddocks.
So this lake fills up just by groundwater and rain, does it?
Jack's Lake, you mean?
Yeah. No,
Yep, has over a long, long time, it's just getting full and full and full and full.
And that's basically by rainfall.
Yes, just that small catchment, just the rainfall. Yeah, there's no rivers into it.
There's no spring there?
No spring there, nothing. So yeah, that was, I just put that page there to show where I got this information from. Was in the eel survey was done there. Large numbers of common bullies were captured, you know, off the charts, large numbers, and that's basically because there's no eels there. So. And yeah, this section there, it says the landowners do not wish eels to be introduced into this lake. I mean, somebody might one day go and chuck a bucket of them in. Well, you know, we don't restrict access. We don't think want to come through hunting or getting watercress or whatever, you know, we're making books of them. So at some point somebody might take it upon themselves, but you know, we sort of feel that it's a unique environment and that it doesn't have an apex predator in there, and so there could be in the future an opportunity to use it for either bird life that's susceptible to eels or to other aquatic like animals or something like that, I don't know, that might thrive in that environment and might be able to be used as a nursery for that sort of species, but that's why I want to keep it in the clear for now. So that's basically what I have to say about Jack's Lake, I think. Does anybody else have any concerns or doubts about that being a man-made lake? I mean, I don't know how this process works, so, but if you have any questions, please fire them at me. I'll move on then to my concern about the boundary of ONF 91 with regard to Lake Whakaiti. There's no doubt in that Lake Whakaiti is a natural feature. My concern is the size of the natural feature zone, because if you now look at this page here, you can see the original 1857 survey map of the area. And unfortunately, when I sent these documents through to the printers, I had asked them to orientate that so it's the same orientation as this. And I've highlighted the survey line. And I wanted to do that so you can sort of see how that relates to the lake level now. And you can see that back in the day, I'll do it on the screen here. If you're looking at, that's the original survey there. And this line here is this highlighted line that I've got here. And it comes down and it comes along to about here, and then it does a series of zigzags through to this point here. And then at that point, the survey line comes along this way. That spot there was where the water left the lake, and there was no lake there. So this, from here all the way down, was just a line. You can see that on there. It's just a line, and but that's way out in deep water now. And the reason why that's important is because this and I'll just go to the next page where I refer to this document here that was part of a Waitangi Tribunal submission. And this is my neighbour Ōmāpere and Lou Tana. And they talk about the Lake Ōwhariiti, and there's just an excerpt there that confirms what we know as local knowledge. So my family came to the area in 1949, Dad was 16, and the stories they were told then by the people who were in the district was that confirming basically what the submitters to the Waitangi Tribunal submitted. And that was that this was the prime eel harvesting spot. When I was a kid in the 70s, a man called Jonah Todua was eeling on the lake a lot, and he let me come in the punt with him, and, gathering the eels. And he had a Māori word for this, which I wish I could remember because nobody knows it. But he said it translates to the coming and the going. That's where the water goes out and it emerges about here out of a big spring, really high power. And that's where the coming and going referred to the eels. So that's where the eels came and went out. That's why Lady Rose Henare described this as the traditional location for tuna harvesting, which is eel catching. And the story we heard and the story that she and Ōmāpere both recount is that somebody threw explosives into the water there. Brilliant idea to make fish float to the surface, you just go and pick them all up. But of course, this is a very fragile lava flow. It's scoria and rock, very, very fragile. I would put it to you that throwing dynamite into a water-laden area would have sent a heck of a shockwave down there, and Lady Rose Henare and others all confirm that immediately after that, the level of the lake began to rise steadily. Up until that point, there had been as you can see on that previous map, a point that it would fill and then it would go over a lip and come down to this in and out area, heavy rain, flood, stop raining. So this was an area that has since become flooded. So I would call that an unnatural event. I'm not saying that it would have stayed that size forever, but that was the size it was in the 1850s. A second event that has occurred, and it's probably best to refer you now to that Google Earth image that loose bit of paper that, and that original image that Alicia Cade had up. If you look now at the top in the middle of that picture, you can see Lakeland Road, a subdivision that goes in there. This is the point now where water floods over, right? So this has just continued to get higher and higher and higher. When this road went in, there was hearings, and we stood with tangata whenua with admittedly differing objectives and things, but we expressed concern that this access was going to go right across the overflow area, and the property developer was able to convince council that it was a one-off event. It had happened in 1988, it was going to happen again, he had the figures to prove it, and it's since 2000s it's happening sort of every sort of third or fourth year sort of thing. And it can happen several years in a row if we have wet enough seasons. It is a real problem because this point here has also, it's higher than the natural crest, which is further out. So as a result, now we have a situation where the gum trees that my grandfather and uncle planted here in the 50s are all dying because they're just getting completely submerged now. There was always some death around the periphery, but a lot of trees around the outside here are dying, and now Lovelock Road floods. So we've never had that before. We've had to lift all our pumps, and we've got 3 pump sheds here. We've had to lift all the pumps, they were flooded. During Gabriel, I think it was, I went there, had to try to get the pump going in the water, and I paddled out to try and turn it off, and I saw a couple of dead eels. I thought, well, I don't know if I want to touch that. But anyway, yeah, we said burnt out gear and things. But so my point there is that there have been 2 unnatural events, one being the explosion here and one being the raising of the road, that has resulted in an unnatural growth of the lake. It's an incredible asset. You know, it's a wonderful habitat, and it does have some challenges in terms of how we're going to deal with this overflow, because we've got three groups affected. We've got the residents here, we've got people around the outside having their land flooded like us, and we've got tanga whenua with a passionate cultural, religious connection with this water, and differing thoughts across a broad spectrum of people as to how best to deal with the overflow issue and the issue of having safe passage of elders and things like that. So there's a lot going on there. So, but what I want to do now, just to finish up, I think pretty much, is basically show you my what I seek, I guess, in this planning process, and that's at the end of the book. I don't think there's anything else I needed to talk about here. So that's at the end here. I've marked. There's two different maps here. One, basically, because that one's really easy to show what I'd like along the lake boundary, and this one's really easy to show what I'd like with regard to the Jacks Lake area. So to start off, I guess, with the lake one, I would just simply ask that the natural area zoning.
This is the ONN?
ONN 91, yep. If that could be adjusted to follow our legal land title boundary, it's a really simple thing to do, because what I've put to you is that the level is much, much higher through those two events than the current boundary marked in the proposed district plan. So yeah, that's what I'm putting to you on that one. And then with regard to the boundary in the Jacks Lake vicinity, it's all, from my perspective, it's all good from there on, sort of thing. But really all they've done is they've gone along a tidal boundary, which does not relate to the actual physical natural feature. So that line that you can see there right now is due to the fact that that's where you can see it here. They've just basically followed along the tidal boundary, then they leapt out to grab the lake. So what I would propose to you is that it comes along the edge of the lava flow, which is the outstanding natural feature, and then comes up along the edge of the bush, which is also on the edge of the lava flow, and then follows along that farm track, and then out that way. And then it just continues being, our property continues north there, but I don't have any objection to the boundary as it sits there. And I think the final thing I just wanted to say was, with regard to the lake, just I do feel for the Lake Whakariiti trustees. I know they're not really engaged in this process. I feel that they, along with the broader iwi groups, are likely to get some compensation for grievances passed. And when that time comes, I would like to think that they haven't been zoned out of some of their options. You know what I mean? I mean, ecotourism, cultural education, aquaculture, there's a whole lot of things that they may want to do with their asset. And I just hate to think that they're kind of left high and dry because they weren't engaged in this process because they didn't have the funds to put into reality their dreams, and that when that time comes, I just hope that this group will, this process will allow for them some flexibility to, exercise their rights as asset owners. And I guess the same applies to the overflow area. If that overflow area is sort of excluded from the natural zoning, natural feature zoning, then just resource consenting and things like that is just so much easier because, in agreement with mainly tanga whenua, the Lake Whakariiti trustees, but also NRC and the residents, we're going to have to try to come up with a solution because there's been horrific erosion in the past, and they've done some work to halt it, but that's a whole other topic. There's been a lot of erosion where the water has thundered down a bank where, if it was a dam, no engineer would be allowed to leave a water structure like that. Is there any questions? That's really the end. I don't think I've got anything else to say.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been an informative and interesting presentation. It's good to get that sort of local history. I'll just see if there's any questions, Commissioner Kensington.
I guess I'm interested to hear what the staff have got to say in response to this, man, because it's kind of, had a quick look at the schedule in the proposed district plan, and it does include the lakes in the schedule, and I guess I can clearly hear where you're coming from, and I totally understand your side of the story, and I guess, yeah, I kind of need to hear where the council's coming from. I don't have a good handle on that.
No,
This one is on.
I nearly brought it, but we went through this process with NRC as well, and at that point, I actually engaged planner guy Russell Mortimer in Whangarei, and he put together all the stuff. I just couldn't face it, and he went through, and it's no longer part of the NRC.
Awesome.
It's not included. It's listed as a man-made lake, and under the Northern Regional Council classifications or whatever, it's listed as a man-made lake.
Okay, well, that's an important kind of,
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So, well, council officers, do you think you're in a position to respond to the evidence group?
So we have engaged Bruce Hayward, who did the ONF mappings through the Northern Regional Mapping Project. He's sort of on standby because he knew this evidence was going to come. So I've requested an electronic copy. We will provide that to him, and then we will obviously respond to this in full through reply evidence, which we do in response to all the evidence received.
Okay. So
we'll get technical experts to
it seems the interim that your evidence has been received and acknowledged by the 4020 report writers, and they've engaged an expert to give them some further advice. So what happens is when we conclude this hearing tomorrow, there'll be a 2-week period where the council officers can weigh up all the evidence that they've heard through these proceedings, and then they provide a response to what the evidence they've heard, and then any further changes that they recommend. And that'll be in writing to us, and we'll put that up on the website. So you might want to keep an eye on Hearing 4 materials within a couple of weeks. We'll just get in touch with Alicia Kate. She could let you know when that happens, and then
Yeah, thanks everybody. If you wouldn't mind, I found the whole finding stuff on the website. I feel your pain. Yeah.
I just want to see if we've got any other questions from any other panel members.
Thank you.
no, thank you. I think you've done really well.
Oh, thank you.
Sometimes pictures speak 1,000 words.
There was a whole lot more I could have brought, like pictures of flooding on Little Road and pictures of flooding going over, and I thought, no, I don't. Hopefully it's enough.
But I take it you haven't been to too many district plan hearings.
No.
Well, this is your first opportunity. You've done very well. It's a very well considered, put together lay submission. So
Great.
well done.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time. And
So can I just have the name of the person the council's name?
Bruce Hayward.
Bruce Hayward. And what's Bruce Hayward an expert in?
John, yes, he did all our ONF mapping.
How you do ONF mapping? Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
so shall I,
Yes, you can.
You're welcome
stay
to
online.
stay and listen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
John Craig.
Yes.
That's him.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
And I'm just going to bring up your presentation. Sorry.
You're Mr. Craig? Well, welcome. We understand you've got a presentation to give us.
I do. Unlike the rest of your afternoon, I don't have any pages of words to give you. Just that I'd like to talk you through why I put in the submission that I did and why I think we're different.
Okay, well, we've all got copies of your submission, so we've seen you sort of tapping away on my computer. That's just me getting that submission up on my screen.
Okay.
So we're in your hands now.
Okay, thank you. I'm talking about Tupou, but the company actually owns another property down at Atoa North, and we've been there for 20 years, so I want to use what we've done there as an example of what we're doing on a bigger scale at Tupou. So really, my concern is with the objectives, especially number 5, which says that under the planned restoration and enhancement of Indigenous biodiversity is to be promoted and enabled, which I think is fantastic. My problem is I don't see how you're planning to do it. Also, under the National Policy Statement on Indigenous biodiversity, local has to consider providing incentives for restoration, and part of this is in recognition of the opportunity cost that goes with managing biodiversity on private land. So our issue is there's no substance, or not enough, just make us feel happy about how that's going to be achieved. And in fact, if you look at numbers 1 and 2 especially, and the associated policies, they really provide disincentives for what we do. I describe myself as a biodiversity and carbon farmer. I'm not a livestock farmer. Under your plan, offsets are allowed to provide retrospective what have I got there? Countering of damage from a development. So offsets are allowed, but they come subsequently. So Tupou is not what you would, I think you will find anywhere else, and we think it needs a different solution. So this slide just tells you I'm a practicing ecologist, have been all my life, work in the Environment Court, I'm a research scientist, etc. So that's just to tell you where I come from. So planning at Tupou, this is an aerial photo of Tupou, and that reddish line that goes around the property from the bottom right through to the top left. So it's a property of about 1460 hectares, and the green area is high quality soils, and the rest is really low quality, steep, non-productive soils. So at the time of purchase, which was 2 years ago, the majority of the property is in classes 6 to 8, so really poor quality erodible land, but it's all been farmed. Yeah, absolutely no pest control happened there. We are into eco-sourcing of plants. We were unable to find fruit or seeds. Basically everything, the flowers and any fruit that didn't get produced were all eaten by pests that were on the property. So we just buy and from somewhere else at the moment, but all Northland seeds. There are 5 recommended SNAs on the property, and these are either habitat for rare species, especially beeches, which have dotterel and oystercatcher, variable oystercatcher, or they were tracts of ungrazed forest remnant. Now, ungrazed meant there were no cattle and very few sheep in it. But of course, everywhere had pigs, cats, stoats, weasels, possums, Norway rats, ship rats, mice, pampas, Watsonia, and many other weeds. So it was a typical unlooked after piece of low-grade pasture, which is what attracts us. Few birds, some lizards, and extensive archaeological sites, which we've had mapped, and we are looking after those as well. So what are our future plans? Well, the plans are to retire the majority of these poor soil lands and plant it in native forest for carbon and biodiversity. So we have already taken out 700 hectares of pasture. So if you just look on the map, that yellow line that goes down from sort of in the middle at the top down to towards the bottom, everything on the right hand side of that has been taken, the stock have been taken out for planting. So we've put in an enormous number of bait stations. These are predominantly to get rid of possums and rats, but also through secondary poisoning to get rid of stoats, weasels and cats. We've got a lot of traps as well. See all the different sorts that we have. We've got lots of experience on killing pests, and the only new staff member that's been appointed is a full-time pest control person, and that's only animal pests for his job. We'll appoint someone else to do the planting. 27,000 plants planted last year. We've 50,000 this year. They'll be finished next week. And our plans for next year are 120,000 bags. So this, in effect, is making more than 700 hectares of this property into the equivalent of an SLA. So map showing, take it out. So just to put this into context, we have a very strong environmental ethic. So if you look on the left-hand side, we want a circular economy. We don't totally have one yet, of course. So restoring biodiversity is a key part of what we want to do. We want plants and native trees planted, regenerate the flora and the fauna, hence the pest control, to bring the animals back. We're total believers that people have to be involved, and it's a great chance to educate people on their heritage and, if they're from overseas, the special things about this country. We want to get an increase in recognised value of biodiversity. Currently it's sort of looked at as of no value other than some government controls. And we always engage the community, and if you look at our current place, we've created about 30 jobs. So there's got to be some money from this. So we have honey, we have skincare and wellness range. We're totally in ecotourism, so we want tracks to take people around. And of course, we want carbon and biodiversity credits. I'm going to talk to you about those because we've got a government that doesn't help us very much on that one. And of course, we're going to keep some farming. We're going to have hopefully more sustainable farming, and we're doing some trials with what we can do with wool at the moment. So our aim is to increase biodiversity, and by doing that, increase income, which then helps us increase more biodiversity. So it's a circular. So to give you an idea of how things change, this is the valley I live in at the time of purchase in 2003, and this is a picture taken 2 years ago.
Wow.
So basically we put in water and we plant lots of trees. At Tahi we've planted almost 500,000.
Can you go back again and show us the back and forth, just to show us the change?
Show you again.
Go
Yep.
back again, yeah.
Okay, so that's what it was. It was a paddock.
So you've done some stream works or some water diversion to achieve?
We've put in a lot of dams. We've made lakes. Northland Regional Council allowed dams to 3 metres.
Yes.
And because you've got to find the clay to make the dam, you dig holes. So in places the water would be 6 metres deep, and other places it's very shallow. We make them a whole range of depths. We always have islands to make better, safer nesting places, and we always have a drain plug to solve the problems for the other.
And you don't dig around it.
No, so we can empty them if you get a problem,
Yes.
or you can just plug it and put them back.
Excellent.
So sorry, we were going through. Are you happy I've gone back?
Yeah, thank you,
That's
that's really helpful.
Okay. So the other thing we do is we measure everything. Right? We've got 3 ecologists involved. At Tupou, we took the measure that rather than have you people believe what we, or other people believe what we do, We got independent people, so we got ecological consultants and RMA ecology to come in and measure plants, animals, water, lizards, etc. And of course, the regional council have also gone in and done some work in the waterways. So we've got a good idea of what was there. At Kahi, we did the measures ourselves. We are ecologists, but of course you could always say, well, perhaps you made it look a little better, but we don't. So the bird species and their density have increased. I've got a graph on the next slide for you. Carbon sequestration is measured, and again, I'll show you a graph on the next slide. We're also looking at tree growth and carbon storage after pest control. So here we've got a dendrochronologist who drills holes in trees and then measures the size of growth rings per year. And the growth rate of trees that are up to 200 years old is doubled since we've got rid of stock and pests. So an enormous amount more carbon stored by getting rid of pests. We introduced Kiwi, and I listened to the conversation you had before. We have transmitters on adults, and we are allowed to put transmitters on 15 chicks every year, so we follow what happens to them and how many they produce, etc. So we know that we've got 6 times the productivity from our kiwi that are measured anywhere else in the North Island. Takes a fair bit of time following all this around. We've also developed a thing called the Biosphere Value Index of plants for restoration, which scores their biodiversity and carbon value, and I'll show you that. For Pātiki, which came up in your previous group, our rarest duck, we have the second highest number have come into the area since we created habitat for them. And a recent survey of Bitten, we had the 4th highest score of all the places done in Northland. So clearly, what we're doing in terms of creating habitat and pest control is having a major effect. So if you look at the left-hand graph there, the bars, the blue are birds that are not ranked as rare or endangered. The left-hand side is what it was like at Tahi when we bought it. The right-hand side is what it's like now, so 73 species gone up from 20. And you look at the orange graph, those are rare, either at-risk or threatened species that have come into the area since we created habitat and safe habitat by no pests. If you look at the right-hand graph, the orange bit at the bottom is carbon storage by year for native forests as recognised by the government, and it comes from plots of Manuka Karnika in Ōmāpere, so a colder area, not as good as Northland. The bluer teeth-like things are what you get from pine with a harvest, and the green is what you get from native forest in Northland. So by the time you get to year 25, you're exceeding what a pine forest will produce. So these are all measures that we do. Okay, you probably can't see this easily, but you might have a copy there. Basically, what we've done is native trees down the left with pine at the bottom, and we look at how long lived are they. So how long will the carbon be stored? Then we look at the wood density, how much carbon you get per cubic centimetre. So you can then get a measure of carbon years that you'll get out of the tree that you plant. The next column is how useful that tree is to birds. The next column is how useful is that tree to insects. And then we add it up on the very right-hand side. That's the BVI. And you can see that Pururi and Urakawa come out at the top. So these are Northland species. They're not naturally found in southern 2/3 of New Zealand. And then if you go there at 100, if you go right down to the bottom to pine, I think the figure is 3. So we have it for about 100 native species. It's readily available. It's on our website, and it's available for everyone else to make calls on how they do things. So that's what we do. That's what we've achieved. So we've got a problem. If we want to put in a road or a walking track on existing paddocks at Tupou, then there are a few constraints. There's constraints about how much dirt we can move. If we plant it in pines, then we're allowed to chop them down, and we're allowed to put in roads to do that. But if you do what we're doing, create SNA equivalents over 700 hectares, suddenly there's a whole set of rules on what we're not allowed to do. Certainly not allowed to do those things up there. It's permitted to put in a walking track, but it can only be 1.2 metres wide. If you're interested in ecotourism, then you don't want people to have to walk in single file. You want them side by side. So why 1.2 metres? If you want to put in a fence, we're allowed to have 3.5 metres. Why can't we have a track that's 2 metres wide? It also allows us to get a vehicle in if there's a health emergency. So basically, what we're doing is just putting constraints on ourselves under what is planned in the proposed district plan. So my question is, your Objective 5 and under the National Policy Statement, Indigenous Biodiversity, is your plan promoting and enabling our plans, or is it providing incentives to have us do this? I would say it's actually full of disincentives. So what's the solution? What do we want? Well, we would like some very clear incentives. I don't know how you're going to do that. My submission asks for a special zone where we have some subzones, which we separate off the sort of 3 activities that we have, one of which is farming, and we have some rules under that that will allow us to do what we want to do, and you're happy that we're not destroying things. Or another option perhaps is you allow what we're doing in terms of planting and pest control to be an offset or compensation for any future activity that we might want to do. The problem is we don't know what we want to do. At Tahi, I've just put in a 6-hour walking track, and I put this in at year 18. You have a rule that says we're allowed to chop down things that we plant as long as they're less than 10 years old. So we wouldn't be allowed to do what we've done at Tahi under the proposed district plan. So it's, I hope you can see the issue. I hope you believe what we're doing fits with what you say the plan is about. And we would really like to work with council to find a solution on how we move forward. So, just to end with one of our favourite birds, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and congratulations on your efforts so far. I'm really interested in this carbon credits thing. So where is that money going to be? Is there a system in place, or is it underway, or proposed to be underway?
With carbon credits?
Yes. And biodiversity credits, because that's a term that I hadn't really come across previously.
Okay, the Ministry for the Environment asked for submissions on biodiversity credits last year. They only got 220 submissions. Other countries have biodiversity credits, they pay you for what you produce on the land. So they do exist internationally, we don't have them. If you look at our carbon credits, absolutely biased towards pine.
That's very nice. So that's just mostly commercial forest, isn't it?
So even though, like I've had meetings with the previous minister and with senior policy analysis analysts in Wellington, and my question for them is, why are they so restricted on Northland, which is so economically and socially disadvantaged, and we have the ability to have the best carbon credits in the country, and they're not recognised. And they had no answer for me. So I would hope that this council, I know NRC put in a word when they can, but you know, we're being hit by something which is just a very, very silly set of national rules.
And in terms of your suggested possible solutions, you mentioned that special zone. Have you received any sort of planning advice on how you would write one of those zones?
Yep, we have a planner, we have a landscape architect, we have an archaeologist, we have a lot of people.
Right, okay, so you've got the resources to do
We've
it.
all sat around and they've said, look, you can do all of this under the existing rules. The problem is, it's just going to cost us a lot in planning fees and legal fees, because we're going to ask for something different from what is readily available.
Yes, I suppose we need to have a look at your submission to see whether a special zone is party or a lead, but that's possibly just a technicality. But would you be prepared to submit the work for a special zone?
Yes,
And have you got a submission on
that was
the rezoning chapter, topic of the?
my original one was about that, and I understand that will come up next year, right?
Right, okay, so you've got an iron in the fire for that hearing to have the land rezoned for a special zone.
Yeah, that would make it easiest for us,
Yes,
I think.
I suspect so, otherwise you're really looking for a big carve out of those other chapters.
And you know, I can understand why the council has the rules that it has, because you're trying to stop the people who are wanting to slowly nip them away at really good bits of native biodiversity. And you won't find many people like us who are prepared to sink millions of dollars into making it. So, yeah.
Yeah, the unintended consequences are the rules really aren't for people like you. So, yes, okay, well, we're sort of considering how we would facilitate the process of the special zone topic, and we'll probably have something back to those parties that are involved in that topic soon, about a direction on how you go about engaging with the council and what sort of information you should provide ahead of that hearing topic. So
No,
there can be some, because there's a lot of work got to be done.
that's the advice we've been given. We've got to prepare a document for you on what we want to do. Our problem is, you know, we don't know exactly what we want to do, and you've got rules on how much land you could clear for a building.
Right.
But then, you know, if we want a building that will be for a class size introduction, then it's got to be more than 100 square metres.
Yes.
So there's lots of little things like that. Yes, we have a planner who can help us get that together.
Yeah, sure. And so, as I say, we'll be in touch, I think, about how we manage that process.
Yep.
So I'll probably leave that there. Has anybody else got any other questions? Yeah, Peter?
Thank you. I think as well, just many questions around the incentives and offsets. I think you raised that not just for your special zone, but for essentially the set of policies and rules at large. And in that, for us as a panel, we should consider if there's enough there to actually provide those incentives, as you said, instead of a PDP full of disincentives. That was one of the quotes I've seen there written. So in terms of what you suggested there, you're saying as well, not just for a special zone, you're seeking for that chapter relating to Indigenous biodiversity to also include incentives, not just for your property, but for the district of Northland. Because as you've identified, there's not really a lot of incentives for our district plan currently.
So I don't totally understand, and my hearing's not perfect, so what?
So for what you're seeking, which is a special zone, obviously that is site specific too, and there's also a map in your submission which was really helpful. But you also identified for the district plan at large for Indigenous biodiversity, it's full of disincentives at the moment for, you said, offsetting, there's not a provision for that, or incentives or compensation for potential, future work. And what you've highlighted is that you'd like to see that for the whole chapter, not just for your special zone.
Well, I think there are,
as an ecologist.
I think there are other people who are doing good things. And the issue, I have issues with offsets because at the moment you do something and then you promise you're going to produce something in the future which will offset what you've done. Whereas I think it should be retrospective. You should use biodiversity credit, demonstrate that you've already produced that, so then you've got something in the bank that you can then call on to allow you to do something slightly different.
Yeah, I guess my question was sort of following on that same theme, in terms of your presentation today has really highlighted that IB05, which is an objective and a goal that we're trying to achieve, which is a positive thing, and the rules, methods and stuff that the plan has is a negative. So what you're saying is we need some positive rules, I guess, to say, well, you can, in order to achieve these outcomes, you can do roading or tracks or earthworks as long as you're achieving those outcomes. So I don't know how you actually write a rule or a method to make that happen, but I can totally understand where you're coming from. It's like that objective is just hanging there without anything to make it happen.
I think if people can see that there is an advantage to doing this even on a small scale, then you'll get more of it happening. Whereas at the moment, they just look at it and go, oh my God, if I do that, this is going to be worse for me. I'm just putting a millstone around my neck.
Yeah. And what you're doing is fantastic, and I commend you on your efforts. So I've never seen anything of that scale.
Thank you.
Man, keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. We're amazing.
We'll keep going, don't worry, it's our plan. But yeah, we'd just like to have a situation where, for us and for anyone else who wants to do it, even on a smaller scale, there are incentives to do it. And it's not just your council, because central government's got to have a big play in this, and they're absolutely not at the table at the moment.
Yeah, thanks very much for your presentation. I think we'd all encourage you to stay with the process. People get cynical and upset about it, but I think it's certainly worth following through it. Thank you.
It seems to me that once more people see the achievements that you've made, particularly that photograph that said this was where they started and what you've achieved in probably 10 years is incredible. So I'm just wondering, have you got your ecotourism component underway?
We've just shut down Tahi to reopen again in November, because we've had a policy of people giving us a donation, but it costs an enormous amount of money to actually make tracks and keep them open, etc. So, and we're building a whole heap of more luxury accommodation to sort of try and change the clientele, I guess.
And I assume there's the operation of that is that the people who stay there actively engage in doing something,
No,
or at least education.
no, we just want their money. No, we don't. we don't want them to do it.
You don't have a participation sort of option?
Oh, we do have an open day every year for local community, and we typically get 700 or 800 people come on that day. It's actually easier not to waste money if you use professional plumbers.
Right.
And we have 2 pest control people at Tahi, but our first one at Tupa. So yeah, it pays to have it totally under control, because I listened to the people you had here before, and I know how easy it is to do the work but not get the results. And because we've got transmitters on Kiwi and things, we know what the cause of death is. And we do have wandering dogs from neighbours. All our neighbours know if their cat comes to our place, it's a dead cat, and they accept that. Because we've got cat traps everywhere, so it's inevitable, it's going to be dead. And dogs, we get them, and we have to control them because the council really can't. It's very hard for a council to actually go on. They've told us they can't go on Maori land without police escort, and the police go, we have no time for that nonsense. We've got enough to do without dogs. So the landowner has to solve it, and we do.
Yes. No, I won't press you too much on the method that you use.
No, we don't use anything really.
Okay, just say bad dog and go back home.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for your submission.
Yeah, thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's hearing. Thank you very much, council officers, for your cooperation and participation today. We'll see you all at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we're going to have a karakia to finish.
Turuki whakataha, whakairi te wānanga, kai wātia aira, kua wātia, huie tāhi. Set aside the money, suspend the wānanga to free us to continue on with the day. Yeah. Like, stopping recording.